Hello, welcome to the channel. Subscribe, leave a like, and don't forget to write a comment. Enjoy watching.
You ever been so invisible that even your own parents forget you exist on the one day that's supposed to be yours? Like you're a background extra in your own damn life, just walking in and out of scenes, holding other people's coats and clapping when they blow out their candles. That's what it feels like every damn year. But this year, something in me cracked. Not all at once, not like a broken bone. More like the sound your windshield makes right before it spiderwebs. Sharp, sudden, and silent enough to make you wonder if it's really happening. But then the pieces start to separate and you realize, yeah, it's happening. I turned 37 this year. 37. That's over 3 decades of birthdays, and I can count on one hand the ones that actually felt like mine. This one was no different, except maybe worse, because I think deep down, a part of me hoped they might remember this time. I don't even know why. I don't live at home. I haven't in years. I'm not loud. I don't post selfies every day. I don't cry in the living room until I get my way. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe being the quiet one means people forget you exist when you're not paying their bills or driving them to the doctor or fixing their internet router for the 100th time. I spent the day alone in my one-bedroom apartment that smells like overcooked pasta and cat litter. I bought myself a tiny chocolate cake from the clearance rack at the grocery store. No candles. Just a plastic container with a dent in the side and a yellow sticker that said Manager Special. I lit a tea light I found in my junk drawer and stuck it in the center. It looked ridiculous. But I sang the song anyway. Quietly. Just for me. No one called. No one texted. Not my mom. Not my dad. And definitely not Rachel. Not that I expected her to. She only reaches out when her car won't start or she needs to borrow money because the brand deal didn't come through this month. I sat on the couch, stared at the cake, and tried to summon some kind of feeling. Anger. Sadness. Something. But all I felt was this thick, heavy numbness that settled in my chest and refused to move. I scrolled through my phone. Checked my email. Nothing. Checked Facebook. Crickets. I clicked on my parents' profile, just out of curiosity. That was a mistake. That was a big goddamn mistake. There it was, at the top of the feed. My mom and dad, standing in front of their driveway, both of them smiling like lunatics, holding up a giant red bow. The caption read, "Surprising our baby girl with her dream Sayar." I tapped the video. I knew I shouldn't have, but I did. It starts with my dad fumbling the camera, laughing as he yells for Rachel to come outside for a second. My mom is already standing next to the car, bouncing on the balls of her feet like she's auditioning for a damn commercial. The Tesla is brand new, pure white, still shining like a tooth in a toothpaste ad. There's a giant red bow on the hood, like something out of a holiday movie. Rachel walks outside in pajama pants and fake surprise, like she didn't already see the car from her window. She screams. Like, actually screams. She hugs our dad, then jumps up and down like a spoiled kid who just got a pony. She's 29. 29. I watched the whole video, all 2 minutes and 17 seconds of it, like some kind of masochist. At the end, my dad looks into the camera and says, "Anything for our girl. She deserves it all." I swear I felt something tear inside me when he said that. Not because she got the car. Not even because they forgot me again. It was the "she deserves it all" part, because that's when I realized they meant it. They really think she deserves everything, and that I deserve nothing. And I know what you're thinking. Maybe they just couldn't afford to do something for both of us. Maybe they forgot my birthday because they're getting older. Maybe I'm being petty. But here's the thing. I pay their mortgage. Not helped. Not once or twice. I have paid their entire goddamn mortgage for the last 10 years. I pay their water bill. I pay for dad's medications every month. I buy groceries when the fridge gets empty. I even paid the deposit when Rachel totaled her last car and couldn't get a loan without a cosigner. But sure, she deserves it all. I sat there in silence for a long time, holding my phone like it was a ticking bomb. I watched the video again. Then a third time. Not because I wanted to, but because something about it kept dragging me back in, like I was trying to spot the exact moment my parents traded me in for a better daughter. I don't know how long I sat like that, staring at the screen, the stupid cake still untouched beside me. Eventually, my cat jumped on the table and knocked the tea light over. The flame went out in an instant. And I just sat there, staring at the smoke curling in the air, wondering how long I'd been invisible and how long I was willing to keep pretending I wasn't. Because I'll tell you something right now. That Tesla? That video? That smile on my dad's face when he said Rachel deserves it all? That was the end. That was the exact moment I decided I was done. Done being the backup plan. Done being the bank. Done being the invisible one. They just didn't know it yet. There's a particular kind of ache that doesn't throb like a wound or stab like a betrayal, but simmers slow and constant, like a pot left on the stove until the water evaporates and the metal starts to burn. That's how I felt the day after my 37th birthday, when I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing under my pillow. Not with birthday messages. Not with belated apologies. No. It was Instagram. A notification from my mom's page. Over 107,000 likes. Surprising our baby girl with her dream car. The caption was in all caps, like they were screaming their pride into the void, and the void loved them for it. The comments poured in like syrup on a stack of lies. Best parents ever. Rachel is so lucky. This is the sweetest thing I've ever seen. One woman even wrote, "It's the unconditional love for me," and I nearly threw my phone across the room. Unconditional love? For who? Certainly not for the daughter who's been quietly wiring money every month, who skipped birthdays and boyfriends and basic dignity to keep two entitled adults afloat while they handed her little sister the keys to a goddamn spaceship on wheels. I sat there on the edge of my bed, my fingers cold and my mind spinning, and I started doing the math in my head, which, honestly, was probably a mistake because I've never been great with numbers, but the rage was doing all the addition for me. $1,500 a month for the mortgage, that's $18,000 a year. Plus the car insurance, maybe $1,500 more. Water, gas, electric, let's call it $4,000, give or take. Dad's meds, about $200 a month, so that's $2,400 a year. A few emergencies sprinkled in. The roof repair, the plumbing fiasco, Rachel's lawyer after the DUI thing we're all supposed to forget. I rounded up in my head and figured it had to be close to, what, $23,000 a year? So that's like $23,000 per year. Times 10 years, that's, what, $170,000? And maybe that number's wrong, maybe some math nerd will correct me in the comments, but the point is, it's a hell of a lot of money. Money that didn't go into my retirement account. Money that didn't pay for therapy when I needed it. Money that didn't take me to Greece or fix my crooked teeth or let me move out of this apartment that still smells like sadness and spilled candle wax. All of it went to them. Every month, like a tithe to a church I didn't believe in anymore. I remember when it started. I was 27 and still living in the guest room, fresh off a breakup and in a job I hated. My dad had just lost some hours at work, and the bank was breathing down their necks about the mortgage. I offered to help, just for a few months. Just to bridge the gap. I used that exact phrase. I'll help cover it until things stabilize. I remember handing my mom the first check. She cried. Said I was a blessing. A rock. The good daughter. But the months turned into years, and the thank you turned into expectation. Then silence. They stopped saying anything at all. The money just vanished from my account like clockwork, and if I ever mentioned it, even once, the mood in the room shifted like I'd farted at a funeral. My mom would sigh and say, "We know you're stressed, sweetie," as if I was the unstable one. My dad would rub his temples like I was giving him a headache. Rachel, if she was home, would just roll her eyes and mutter something about Emily's martyr complex. So I stopped mentioning it. Stopped reminding them that I existed. That I was bleeding for them behind the scenes, while they handed Rachel the spotlight and a Tesla to match. It hit me hard, the clarity. Not like a thunderbolt, but more like a page turning and realizing the story you're in isn't about you and never was. I thought about all the birthdays. The year I turned 30 and spent it helping my mom decorate for Rachel's graduation party. The year I turned 33 and Rachel showed up late to dinner, drunk, wearing white to a restaurant with red sauce and still managed to be the center of attention. The year I turned 35 and they forgot completely because Rachel was going through something with a guy named Brent. So yeah, I snapped. Not in a dramatic way. Not with tears or screaming or some Hollywood meltdown in a parking lot. I just picked up the phone, called my bank, and said 5 words I never thought I'd say, cut off every automatic transfer. The woman on the line asked if I was sure, and I smiled for the first time that week. I'm positive, I told her. They'll figure it out. I hung up, sat back, and waited. Not for an apology. Not for a thank you. But for the fallout. Because I knew deep down that they would come running. Not because they missed me. Not because they finally saw me. But because they needed me. And I was done being needed by people who only remember I exist when something breaks. Let's see how long their perfect world holds up without me propping it up from behind the curtain. Let's see what happens when the spotlight turns off and they realize the stage was paid for by the one they ignored. The silence was almost comical at first, eerie, cold, and hollow like the space between 2 thunderclaps, as if everyone collectively decided to pretend nothing had changed, that the earth hadn't shifted beneath them, that the money just disappeared like vapor and nobody needed to ask questions. For 3 full days, my phone didn't ring once. No calls, no texts, no guilt-laced voicemails trying to mask entitlement as concern. I went to work, came home, ate leftover pasta with too much garlic, and slept like I hadn't in months. It was the kind of silence that feels almost holy when you've lived a life of constant demands, of being everyone's crutch, but no one's priority. But then came the 4th day and the thunder rolled in. The first voicemail was from my dad, his voice stiff and overly casual in that way people sound when they're trying to be nice to someone they think owes them something. He said, "Hey, kiddo. I think the bank made a mistake. We missed the mortgage payment, and I'm just checking to see if you can look into that. I know you've been busy lately, but just let me know when you've sorted it out." When I've sorted it out. Like it was still my problem, like their mortgage was still my cross to carry, because God forbid anyone else in that house pick up a damn financial burden. I played that message twice, sipping my cheap red wine while curled up on the couch, watching the condensation roll down the glass like little red tears. I didn't feel guilty. Not even a little. Mostly I felt this icy calm, like I was floating above everything, finally able to breathe without someone tugging on my sleeve asking for another favor. It felt wrong how right it felt, and that was the first time I knew for sure that I had done the exact right thing. The messages multiplied by the next day. First my mom, her voice tight and teetering on the edge of practiced concern. She asked if everything was okay with the account, that things weren't going through, and maybe there's been a mix-up. I let it sit. Didn't reply. Watched the little notification mock me from the corner of the screen. Then, a week after the birthday that never was, I got the message that twisted the knife they'd been holding for years. It was my mother again, but this time crying, really crying, that tremble in her voice that she usually reserves for funerals and canceled Christmas plans. She said the pharmacy wouldn't refill my dad's meds without payment. She didn't ask if I could fix it. She just said, "He needs those pills, Emily. Please. He needs them. You can't just leave this like it is." I put down my fork mid-bite, opened my phone, and typed exactly 8 words. "I'm sure Rachel and the Tesla can figure it out." I hit send and stared at the screen, waiting for the 3 bouncing dots of a reply that never came. Nothing. Just silence again, but this time the kind filled with rage and disbelief on the other end. It didn't take long before Rachel crawled out of her influencer cave, sliding into my DMs with the kind of smug tone only someone who's never had to work a real job in their life could manage. "Why are you being so dramatic?" she wrote, like I'd just posted vague quotes about betrayal or deleted our parents' contact info out of spite. Like this wasn't 10 years of swallowing my pride finally exploding in her face. I didn't argue. Didn't call her out. I just sent her the birthday post, the Tesla reveal, the fake tears, the hashtags, the red bow and Dad's proud, puffed up smile as he said, "She deserves it all." I watched the screen, expecting her to say something, anything, maybe even backtrack or pretend she hadn't seen it. But instead, she sent back one thing. An eye emoji. That was it. Not a word. Just two cartoon eyes, watching me like I was the unhinged one, like I was the spectacle for finally choosing to stop playing the martyr. That night, I turned my phone on silent. I unplugged the router and read a book in the bathtub until the water went cold. I had half a bottle of wine and didn't bother brushing my hair before bed. I slept under a pile of laundry and let my cat knead my shoulder like he was trying to resuscitate whatever was left of my guilt. But it was gone. I could feel it. Not buried. Not hidden. Just gone. And that's how I knew they were going to escalate. I didn't expect the knock. Not that night. Not on a Tuesday. I thought I had more time before they broke through their usual passive-aggressive tactics and tried the in-person guilt trip. But there she was, standing outside my apartment in a coat that didn't match her shoes, hair frizzy from crying or maybe just from forgetting how to take care of herself without my money. My mother, Linda, 63 years old and still thinking tears were currency. "You're really going to let us drown?" she asked, without so much as a hello. I didn't answer. I just looked at her and wondered how long she'd been drowning without realizing I was the one holding her up this whole time. I didn't invite her in. Didn't say anything at all. Just stood there in the doorway while the wind from the hallway blew in around us like a warning. Because this wasn't the end, not yet. But it was the beginning of theirs. She stood in my doorway like a woman who thought the world owed her warmth just for showing up with a sad face, clutching her purse like it held the last piece of leverage she had left. Her voice came out low, cracked, trembling in a way that used to shake something inside me, but now all I felt was this numb sort of detachment, like I was watching someone else's mother fall apart on some poorly lit stage. "You know your father could die without those meds," she said, her hand twitching slightly as if she expected me to rush toward her, open-armed and guilty, like always. But this time I didn't. I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, voice steady, and said, "He didn't seem close to death when he was doing cartwheels around the Tesla." I wasn't trying to be cruel, but it came out that way, sharp and metallic, like I'd finally found the part of myself that wasn't afraid to stop cushioning every blow. Her face twisted like she couldn't believe what she was hearing, like I'd just thrown a glass of cold water on the perfect illusion she'd spent decades curating, that I was the stable one, the forgiving one, the one who would always pick up the pieces and never raise my voice. But today wasn't going to be one of those days. Today, I was done carrying things that didn't belong to me anymore. She took a step forward, but I didn't move. "Emily," she said, her voice rising into that tone she always used when trying to reassert control. "This isn't about money. This is about family. About doing what's right." I laughed, not a little chuckle, but one of those dry, bitter laughs that feels like it comes from somewhere deep in the chest, scraped raw from years of being silenced and dismissed. "You want to talk about doing what's right?" I said, finally uncrossing my arms, the heat building in my face now that the dam had cracked. "I gave up my 20s for you. I gave up trips with friends, holidays with boyfriends, weekends that I should have spent sleeping in or drinking too much or figuring out what the hell I wanted out of life. I gave you my money, my time, my attention. Every birthday since I turned 21 was just a countdown to another reminder that I didn't matter unless you needed something. And you gave her, the one who still lives in your house, who's never paid a single bill, you gave her a Tesla." She opened her mouth, but I wasn't finished. Not by a long shot. "I skipped vacations because I couldn't afford both plane tickets and your water heater repair. I skipped therapy because the deductible was too high and I figured, hell, what's another few months of depression when your father's cholesterol meds need refilling? Meanwhile, Rachel's posting spa days and Botox selfies like she's the face of a goddamn skincare brand, and you two are cheering her on like she's done something worth celebrating. You don't get to call me selfish. You don't get to stand in my doorway and act like I'm the one tearing this family apart. I've been holding it together with duct tape and overdraft fees for 10 years. She stepped back slightly, her expression shifting from wounded to defensive, the way people do when they realize they can't control the story anymore. "You're just jealous," she muttered, almost like she was hoping I wouldn't hear it. "You've always been jealous of her." That one made me laugh again, this time louder, sharper, a sound so foreign coming out of my mouth it almost startled us both. "Jealous," I repeated. "Jealous of what? Of being the golden child in a house where love is a prize and guilt is a leash? Jealous of someone who's spent her entire life convinced she can screw up as many times as she wants because someone else will always clean up the mess." I could see the words hit her like tiny punches, but I didn't stop. I was too far in now. Too deep in the truth to turn back. I closed the door a little, just enough to make her lean in. "I'm not the villain here," I said. "But if that's the role you need me to play so you can keep pretending Rachel is a princess, and I'm the problem, fine. Let me be the villain." I shut the door before she could reply, and stood there for a minute, listening to the soft thud of her footsteps retreating down the hallway. My hands were shaking, but not from regret, from release. It felt like taking off a costume I didn't know I'd been wearing since I was a teenager. Like I could finally see myself clearly in the mirror, flaws and all, and not feel like I had to apologize for existing. But of course, it wasn't going to end there. It never does. The next morning, I woke up to 3 texts from coworkers, 2 missed calls from an unknown number, and 1 link that made my stomach drop before I even opened it. Rachel had posted a TikTok. A crying video. Her face blotchy and red, voice shaking just enough to look real. The caption read, "When your own sister ruins your parents' life." 500,000 views and counting. I watched it once, then again. And then I turned my phone off, sat down at my kitchen table, and stared out the window as the sunlight hit the cracked blinds and made everything look peaceful for a moment. Let them have their version of the story. Let them tell the world I'm the monster. Because if being the villain is what it takes to finally be free, then so be it. It started with the comments, harmless at first, almost laughable in their ignorance, like someone casually throwing pebbles at a freight train, thinking they're making an impact. The TikTok Rachel posted had apparently made its way off the platform and spread like mold into the places people go when they want to feel righteous without knowing a damn thing about the people they're talking about. My inbox filled up overnight with strangers who knew exactly 2 things: that a young woman had cried on camera, and that I had allegedly cut off my elderly parents in some cruel, cold-hearted move just to make a point. They didn't ask questions. They didn't want nuance. They wanted a villain. And they got one. "You're disgusting. How could you do that to your parents? Bet you're jealous because you couldn't afford a Tesla." That last one made me laugh in a way I hadn't laughed in days, bitter and amused, and just tired enough to find humor in the absolute absurdity of strangers pretending to know me. One message said, "This is elder abuse, and I hope karma gets you." I almost replied with my dad's latest pharmacy bill and the total I'd paid toward their mortgage over the last decade, but what would be the point? People don't want facts. They want drama. They want a story that fits their moral outrage and makes them feel better about their own lives. By the end of the week, a Reddit thread had gone viral. The title read, "Am I the only one who thinks Emily is the greediest sister in America?" I didn't read the full thread. I didn't need to. The first few lines were enough, all speculation, all venom, all built on the narrative that Rachel had carefully crafted and spoon-fed to her audience, with filters and mascara tears and a trembling voice that somehow made me the villain without her ever saying my name. That's the real art, isn't it? Convince the world you're the victim without getting your hands dirty. Then the letter came. It arrived in a cheap envelope, the kind banks send when they want to seem formal, but not quite threatening, not yet. I didn't even open it right away. It sat on the kitchen counter for 3 days next to a crusty mug and a stack of unread coupons before I finally sliced it open with a butter knife. It was from the bank. My parents' house was now in pre-foreclosure. I sat down, read it once, and then read it again, not out of disbelief, but because something in me wanted to feel something about it. Anger, sadness, panic, relief. But all I felt was this slow, sinking silence, like watching a glass fall in slow motion and knowing you're not going to try to catch it. I didn't call them. I didn't reply to the last few messages my mom had sent, which had shifted from begging to scolding to silence. I didn't check Rachel's stories or TikToks. I didn't open the link someone texted me with the caption, "You need to see this." I already knew what I needed to see, and it wasn't in any comment section or viral thread. That Sunday, I drove out to the lake. It wasn't far, maybe an hour, but far enough that my phone signal dropped somewhere near mile marker 78 and never came back. I parked, left my shoes in the car, and walked barefoot to the edge of the water where the rocks were smooth and the wind was cold and the silence wasn't a punishment, but a gift. I sat down, pulled my coat around me, and just watched the ripples on the surface. The sky was dull gray, the kind of overcast that makes everything feel heavier and more honest. It was beautiful in its bleakness. I thought about all the ways I'd tried to earn love from people who treated me like a utility. I thought about every birthday cake I'd bought myself, every vacation I skipped, every therapist I couldn't afford because I was too busy funding someone else's life. I thought about Rachel's Tesla, still probably parked in the driveway of the house they were about to lose. I wondered if she would sell it. I wondered if she'd even consider it. Mostly, though, I thought about the thing that had never happened. Not once, in all the calls, the messages, the tears, the demands, not one of them had ever said, "I'm sorry." Not once had they said, "Thank you." Not once had they admitted they had taken me for granted. It was always my fault. My duty. My burden. My shame for finally putting down the bricks they kept handing me. That's the thing people don't talk about when it comes to family, how it's possible to love people and still need to leave them behind. How sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is walk away before you drown under the weight of someone else's comfort. By the time I got back to my apartment, it was dark. I made tea, turned off the lights, and sat on the floor of my living room because I didn't feel like sitting on the couch. I picked up the remote and, out of habit, opened the Netflix account I hadn't used in months, the one we all used to share before Rachel changed the password to something passive-aggressive like favorite 3-child. And there it was. The recently watched list. Parenting 101. How not to screw up your kids. I stared at the title, blinked twice, and then burst out laughing, the real kind this time. The belly-deep kind that comes out when the universe gives you a punchline too perfect to be real. I laughed until my stomach hurt and tears rolled down my face, not from sadness, not anymore, but from the ridiculous irony of it all. They think I burned the house down. But all I did was stop building it.